Hello guys, and welcome back once again to the channel, where today we're going to be doing another top 10 video. The last one, my top 10 favourite bands, seemed to go down really well. For a short period of time, some people following the playlist that I put up on Spotify. I'm going to be doing the same again for today's top 10 albums. One thing that was said to me in the last video was actually making this into a countdown, so like a 10 to 1 kind of thing. But the reason I haven't done it that way is because my feelings change on my favourite bands and favourite albums all the time. So what is number 1 today could be like number 3 in a couple of weeks time or something. So I'm just putting them all into like a general top 10, so whatever's first or whatever's last, it doesn't mean that's 10th and that's first and vice versa. So that's why I'm doing it that way. So getting straight into it, and Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers is like arguably is probably going to be one of my favourites on this list. I mean, it came out in 1999 and I think I must have started listening to it around 2000, 2001 I think is when I was kind of getting into that kind of music. It was one of those albums that I put on and I just listened to it and listened to it and listened to it. That along with Blood Sugar Sex Magik, but Californication just had more to it for me. I could listen to those songs a lot easier than Blood Sugar Sex Magik album. It's got such a bloody strong start with Around the World. That bass line to begin with is just, to me, is heaven. Like, I love that. If I could ever manage to get to play that on bass the way that Flea does, then that'd be amazing. The first 6 songs on Californication, it's just like fantastic. I mean, the whole album is great, but it's such a strong start. You've got Around the World, you've got Parallel Universe, got Scar Tissue, Other Side, Get on Top, and Californication, and then throw in, you know, Road Tripping, Saviour and stuff like that towards the end of it. I Like Dirt. It's just a great album. It's one of those that you can put on and you just listen to it and you find yourself singing a lot. Well, as much as you can, because half the time you don't know what he's saying. With it being one of those albums that like I first listened to as I was properly getting into music, it's just always going to be like one of the top ones for me. So Californication is amazing. If you've never heard of it, like if you're into that kind of music but you'd never really listened to Red Hot Chili Peppers before, start with Californication and you won't look back. Second up, we get Endgame by Rise Against, and this is an album I didn't really get into Rise Against until 2016. It was pretty much just when me and Charlie had moved in to the house together. I'd heard a few of their songs before but never really taken proper note of them, and then I bought 2 of their albums, one of them being Endgame, and I put it on in the car when me and Charlie used to be going to and from work and everything. And I think we must have listened to it non-stop for a good couple of weeks. It's just such a good album. For getting into Rise Against, it was a really good starting point for me personally, and I would kind of say that for other people as well. It's just a very solid album. Like, for me, there isn't a bad song on there. Starting strong with Architects, which is just a great song. Again, great kind of riff to start the album. You got Satellites, which is probably the most well-known one off there. Help Is On The Way, Broken Mirrors, Make It Stop. It's just, it's hard to say what it is about it. It's just the lyrics behind it are very easy to listen to and get a hold of, and you find yourself singing the songs after just a couple of listens. The music is just great, loads of great riffs and memorable kind of repetitions in there that kind of get stuck in your head. It's literally one of those albums that you can listen to over and over and over again and it doesn't matter. Like, it's nice to have a bit of a change now and then, but if it's just something in the car for like going to and from work, I'd listen to it on repeat various times. And like I said, me and Charlie just didn't stop listening to it for a good couple of weeks. Next up, an album that I spoke about on my top 10 favourite bands by The Used is In Love and Death. It's around about the time that I was kind of getting into a bit of a deeper, meaningful kind of stage of listening to music. You know, I was 14 at the time, and they were kind of getting into that, the emo kind of, I don't want to say craze, but the emo stage had started creeping into school, and My Chemical Romance and all kinds of stuff like that, Panic at the Disco. And I'd already been listening to Used, mainly The Taste of Ink, that had kind of got me into it, in the self-titled album. And then this came out and I listened to it for the first time, and I'd never ever listened so intently to kind of the lyrics behind the songs. And that, like, again, like I mentioned in my last video, I'm not a person to really do that. I just like the music and just listen to it and sing along. But this one, I could tell like there was so much emotion and feeling into every single song that had gone into this album. And when like you hear everything that did go on whilst this album was going on, it makes it even more incredible and made for just such an amazing listening experience. So whilst recording was going on, Bert, who is the lead singer of The Used, two of his kind of closest friends died. So like I say, one of his friends died, and the other person that died was his ex-girlfriend. They'd recently split up. She was carrying his child, and they'd split up but agreed to stay close friends and to bring this baby up, and she died of an overdose, which, as you can imagine, losing another friend, losing her and his child, that's going to really affect you. And I mean, he was all kind of messed up on drugs and alcohol and everything at the time. John Feldman actually produced the album. John Feldman from Goldfinger, an amazing producer. He produced so many. I didn't realise how many amazing bands and albums that he sort of produced for, looking through it all. But yeah, he produced this album with The Used, and apparently there was a lot of kind of knocking heads together with it, and all that together culminated in Love and Death. Although obviously it's tragic and it's so sad, the things that are behind it, it's culminated in such an amazing album with such meaning behind it, and it's just great. I mean, All That I've Got is on there. It's got an amazing start with Take It Away. I Caught Fire, which is one of my all-time favourite songs. Again, that's just beautiful. Yesterday's Feeling, Light with a Sharpened Edge. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful album. That's the way of putting it. It's a beautiful album to listen to. Even if there are the heavier songs on there, it's still beautiful. And it's just great. Again, if you're not listening to The Used, go back and listen to Self-Titled, but especially in Love and Death. Next album is one that I imagine the majority of people will not have heard of on here. It's called Observation of the Human Condition by a band called Survey Says. This is a band that I kind of discovered around 2014, 2015. And I absolutely fell in love with them. A ska pop punk band from America. They only had 2 albums out. This was the second one they brought out in 2014, and again, kind of similar to In Love and Death by The Used. This album is, well, as the title suggests, it is all kind of it kind of feels like a story, and it's talking like the songs are based on the human condition and mental illnesses and depression and anxiety. And for someone who was going through all that shit at the time, listening to this album was like, oh my god, that's me. These songs are about me. This is how I feel. And I'd never really truly had that with any other band or album or songs before, really. Unfortunately, Survey Says are no longer. They've kind of formed into another band called Keep Flying, which are just as good. They're very good. It's just different band members and everything. It's got a fantastic sound to it. I mean, like I say, it's got that ska element in there. It's got that kind of pop punk element. It's all very upbeat, although it's talking about the human mind and depression and anxiety. It's got a very uplifting sound to it, which is what you want. Again, you get that from ska anyway. But I've used their music in my videos a lot, Ode to My Willpower and I Am to Misbehave in particular. But yeah, if you've not heard of this band, and if you're into your ska and your pop punk like I am, go give them a listen, and also check out the new band Keep Flying as well. If you suffer with mental illness and depression and everything like that, if you listen to it, then you will relate to so much that is in this album, and it was just great to hear, and I will always be able to put it on and listen to it and actually feel happy. It kind of has that effect on me, which is quite nice. Whenever I hear people of my age talking about albums that mean the most to them, I think The Black Parade is the one that pops up the most, and for good reason, because it is a fucking amazing album. Around the time that it came out, which was 2006, so I'll have been 15, 16 at this time, and it was just one of those, you know, My Chemical Romance, they had the haters obviously, and they had the critics and everything, but I loved them. You know, I loved them from the previous album, and they were very popular amongst my group of friends. And when Black Parade came out, and the actual song Black Parade, Welcome to the Black Parade, it was just like the most amazing thing I'd ever heard at the time. When I first saw that video, and it just kind of has that very slow beginning, and then all of a sudden it just cuts into it, and you hear the guitars for the first time, and it's just like, oh right, yeah, this is gonna be something big, this is gonna be amazing. And the entire album is just to be honest, I struggle with words for this album, but it is one of those, again, that I can just put on and it takes me back to that point in my life and that time and that group of friends, and going out and having such a laugh and listening to the Black Parade and singing along to Dead and Famous Last Words and House of Wolves and Mama and Teenagers. It's just so good. I mean, it's one of those, if like it's one of those albums that you listen to back then and then you've kind of grown up and kind of moved away onto different musical adventures and everything. If you haven't heard the Black Parade like since then, go back and listen to it, and I bet you anything it will take you back to that time in your life and you'll feel like 15, 16, 17 again. And it's just amazing. I love it to bits. I always will. It'll always be one of those albums that I can put on and it takes me back to a happy place. It wouldn't be one of my top 10 favourite albums if I didn't have a Les and Jake entry on there. And I kind of surprised myself by putting this album in, because obviously being a big Les and Jake fan, it can be difficult going through the albums and kind of seeing which is my favourite. I've actually gone for one of the more latest ones, See the Light, which came out in 2013. See the Light was the first kind of full album release since around, I'm probably getting the dates wrong, I think around 2008, possibly 2000, or maybe 2007, 2008, which was GMVFLA. And I mean, I love that album, but it had been such a long wait between albums, and there was such, well, between Les and Jake fans anyway, there was such a kind of an eagerness to listen to what the guys have been up to, and they'd been saying how proud they were of it and that they were so happy with it. I remember coming home one day and the CD was there waiting for me. Yes, a CD. I was using CDs, and it was quite late at night as well. I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I put it on, and Good Enough started up, and straight away I was just like, I'm gonna fucking love this album so much. And oh my god, it was just better than anything I could have imagined. When a band's been around like kind of as long as they have with Les and Jake, I mean at that point obviously it wasn't 25 years, but Les and Jake, the thing that you hear quite a lot from people who like them but wouldn't say they're fans, I was like, oh, I prefer the earlier stuff, I prefer the kind of, well, people go one or two ways. Say I prefer the punkier stuff from earlier on, or I prefer the more ska stuff. And See the Light just came out and just blew everyone out of the water, for me anyway, and it had that amazing ska element to it. Like I say, the beginning of Good Enough came around, I was like, well, this is just it, this is everything that people could want from it. It's still got that kind of punky element to it and everything, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it went from that, and then My Money's on the Long Shot, which they did an amazing video for, and someone did a fan video for, which I'm actually included in, which was really, really fun to do. There's like Do the Math, which again is like one of my all-time favourite Les and Jake songs. Give Me Something to Believe in as well. It's such an upbeat album, like every single song just gets you like tap. If I'm driving along, then it can be quite dangerous because my feet have got tapping all over the place and I'm singing so loud I'm not concentrating. It had been such a long time since an album had had that effect on me, and the fact that it was Les and Jake, it made me feel even better about myself. And even though it's one of the later albums and people say, oh, it's all the older stuff's better, no, I'm sorry, listen to See the Light and you'll see that Les and Jake are still recording and releasing just as good stuff now as what they were back in like 1996, 97 and everything, with Hello Rock View and Bods and Boundaries and stuff like that. They're still doing it, and they did it again with Sound the Alarm last year. They're still a great band. But yeah, See the Light, go listen to it. Next up we've got Hang On by Sponge. Again, I mentioned in the last video that I didn't really discover Sponge until 2016, which I hate myself for. So their last album was in 2014 and it was Hang On. And I'd listened to a best of compilation, which I believe they brought out before they brought Hang On out. But Hang On was the first like actual album that I listened to by them. And it just makes me smile. It's just such an, I mean, Sponge as a band are just an upbeat, happy, smiley kind of experience, but Hang On, just, I put that on and I don't stop smiling. It's quite a short album, It's not very long. I don't think any song kind of exceeds 3 minutes. I don't think, I might be wrong there. My favourite Sponge song is one called Higher Ground, and it comes from this album. And the bass line behind it is just so spot on. Again, perfect. I absolutely love a good bass line in music, and Higher Ground does that. Nothing at All is a fantastic song from there. Gather Wound, I am saying that correctly, I haven't got a speech impediment. Worthwhile Waste of Time, again, it's just such a, you listen to that and you can't fail but to be in a good mood afterwards. And yeah, it's just, yeah, I mentioned Sponge, not a lot of people will listen to them before. Apart from like a best of album, if there's just one album I recommend, it'd be that one. It's the most recent one, and again it proves that a band that have been around for such a long time are still producing, up until like a couple of years ago, still producing and releasing awesome stuff. The Poison, Bullet for My Valentine, again an album that just takes me back to the time that I was listening to it. Released in 2005, and at the time that I was getting into the heavier kind of scene and the heavier kind of music, and Bullet had just came onto the scene with this album and just kind of blew everything out of it. I mean, they were massive at the time, and I went to see them. They were headlining a Kerrang tour. Must have been around that time, 2005, 2006, along with Hawthorne Heights and Aiden, possibly Silverstein. I'm not actually sure. Never really heard much of them before, but my mates had said, listen to this album, we're going to go see this band, you'll love it. And I remember listening to it, and just the intro to it, it's just like, it's very quiet, and I think it's got like a rainy kind of environment, and it's just quiet, guitars playing, and then it just gets into it, and it's that heavy classic Bullet sound, and it is just, for me, it is a flawless album. Every single song I absolutely love to bits. It's got the classics on there, obviously Tears Don't Fall, Everything I Hate, again probably the two most famous songs from there. But it's got, you know, Room 409, Hit the Floor, Cries in Vain. Like, for me, that, I still like Bullet, and I've listened to all their albums, and they are great, but nothing for me has still beaten that first album that they brought. They started so strong with The Poison, and yeah, if you're into that kind of music and you like heavier stuff, but Bullet are a band that have kind of, you've just missed for whatever reason, go back to The Poison, listen to that, and you'll fall in love with them straight away. It's such a strong album. It's just great, I love it. Very similar to Californication now, with Conspiracy of One by The Offspring. This is an album that once I listened to for that first time, again around 2001, 2002 or something, I think my brother had legally given me the CD. I listened to it once, and I probably had it on for the rest of that week at least, or for the next couple of weeks. I absolutely fell in love with The Offspring after listening to that. Obviously that along with Americana, but for me Conspiracy of One is the superior album. So strong all the way through. It's got that upbeat feeling to it with a tinge of more meaning to it. I think there's more meaningful songs on Conspiracy of One. It's still got, you know, it's got a Reasonable Prankster on there, and One Fine Day. I mean, One Fine Day is just an amazing song if you've not heard that before, but it's got that silly element to it. But then it's got like Denial Revisited, which is quite a deeper song, and for me the strongest songs is probably either Denial or Million Miles Away. I absolutely love that song to bits. It's such an amazing song. Want You Bad, of course, and Come Out Swinging is a great start to it, after the short intro that they tend to do. But yeah, Conspiracy of One is just probably up there with Californication, like one of my all-time, I know this is my all-time favourite album list, but it's probably going to be up the top end of this list. And finishing this list, we've got Area 11 with their most recent release, which is Modern Synthesis. It's their second full album release, brought out in 2016, and I was so proud of them when they brought this out. I'd been listening to them since around 2013, 2014. They'd had All the Lights in the Sky out and a few other kind of little EPs out and everything. I loved them anyway. I thought they were a great band, and I'd been seeing them live in Leeds in front of like 20 people in the Fenton pub, and you know, I absolutely loved them to bits. And All Lights in the Sky was a fantastic album, deep and meaningful, but was quite jolly. And I don't want to. It's hard to describe this without calling it weak. I don't mean it's weak, because I love the album. But when they brought, you could tell you what it is. You could tell that they were still quite a young, new band. You could tell the experience wasn't there. When they brought Modern Synthesis out, it sounded like such a grown-up album. It sounded like just like this came out, and I thought, yeah, they've done it. They've made it. That's it. They're gonna go from strength to strength now. You know, if they weren't going to do it from the last one, they're definitely doing it from this, because oh my god, I listened to it. I bought, I think I downloaded it on Spotify. I think I bought the CD. I bought the vinyl as well. As soon as it came out, I listened to it. I think I listened to it about 3 times in a row. I had like a day off work and I just listened to it, and I just fell in love with it straight away. It's like a storytelling kind of thingy. It just starts off, they do so well. Sparkles, I think they all do this, but it's mainly Sparkles, and he's so good at the storytelling element of Area 11's music, and you can hear everything is just kind of intertwined and weaves through every single song, and it's just, I love it. An album that can have songs that kind of one of those where one song ends and then merges into the next one. I absolutely love that to bits. It's hard to pick a favourite from that. I mean, I think they released Verses and The Contract, and After the Flags as singles. I might be wrong there, but Verses was the first one that came out before the album came out, and I fell in love with this song, because they've gone a lot heavier with Modern Synthesis. You know, Sparkle's doing a little bit of screaming as well, and it was just a bit of a darker, deeper, meaningful kind of album than All the Lights in the Sky. So there was that, The Contract, which is a great song. Red Queen is arguably my favourite. But one thing that I love that they do, a Processor is amazing on it, but Panacea in the Prelogue, the last song on the album, very similar to what they did with, oh god, let's see if I can pronounce this right, Bozozoku Symphonic from All the Lights in the Sky. It's kind of a longer track. I mean, not quite to the extent of Bozozoku Symphonic, which was a lot more instrumental and a lot longer. But Panacea in the Prelogue is just such the perfect end to an album, and just really kind of encapsulates Modern Synthesis and everything that they're doing with it. You can hear the production value that's gone into it, and they put so much time and so much effort into it. I mean, I think they actually delayed the album because they were kind of putting so much effort into it. And it's just so great to see a band that you've followed since they were very much smaller, and seeing them play in front of you know, a small number of people at a gig, to seeing them make it and releasing albums like this that are up there with anything else being released at the same time. You know, they've been put on the same kind of pedestal and similarities to Enter Shikari, which are doing massive at the moment again. And yeah, it's just great to see. If you've not heard Area 11, go listen to Modern Synthesis and you won't be disappointed. So there we go, guys. Those are my top 10 favourite albums. I've created a playlist on Spotify, 2 songs from each album, which I will put the link in the description below, so if you want to go follow that and check it out, then you can do. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. Putting together the playlist and choosing the songs from it, like, so many of my favourite all-time songs are on there, so it kind of proves that I've made a pretty good decision with my choices here. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. If you want to leave your thoughts in the comment section below, then do. Let me know your favourite all-time albums, whether you share similar taste to me or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can do that, or you can do it on my Twitter at ChrisJonesLUFC as well. If you have any ideas or thoughts on other top 10 videos that I could do, then please do let me know, again, in the comment sections below or at my Twitter. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all very soon.